Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to another recording slash live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, May the 8th, and I have a decent amount of quests to do as I'm setting everything up here, getting the live chat and everything set up as well as we can. Let's see, we need to trade out one quest. I got 3 packs, and I'm not sure exactly what I did to deserve them, actually. These two overlap with the rogue, so I'll trade this one. And there we have druid overlap on this, and rogue overlap on this, which means it won't be too much work to get these things done. These are the, I think, Mean Streets of Gadget cards. Look at that gold animation. I think these are Mean Streets of Gadget. Yeah, it has to be because it's a jade thing. So the only thing I could think that would have gotten me 3 card packs is that pick a winner in the tournament that Hearthstone emailed me about, and anybody could have picked gone to the website, picked a winner, and I assume my guy either came in second because he was in the last 4 runs. Ooh, golden legendary, white eyes. I got lucky there. We're gonna have to do something about that. So first things first, we'll turn all the rest of this into dust. And then we'll come over here and see what this card was that was new. It is this. I got a second one of those. And then over here should be the golden legendary. So I could disenchant it for 1600 and then craft this card, or I could craft a different card. I'm gonna disenchant it, and it's like, are you sure? And they're like, okay. And I think what I would prefer is to have the classic cards that are legendaries in a neutral set. Since now I have 2000 dust, which kind of goes to show that I had some amount of dust anyway. Do I want Harrison Jones, or do I want something else? The Beast, maybe. The Black Knight. Alistraza. Nosadormus. Actually, let's go with the Black Knight. So that's the Black Knight.
None shall pass.
So one legendary traded for another legendary. Hearthstone, amongst all the other games, was forced to disclose its rates of drops through its Chinese website, which again, I still don't see any reason why somebody couldn't have different drop rates in China versus other countries. And even in disclosing it and mostly just confirming what people had already figured out, as far as, I guess I can't do anything with this 400 dust, as far as what the drop rates are and the fact that there is a pity timer. It confirmed those things, but it didn't really seem to disclose anything that was unexpected or new. Let's go ahead and try this. I guess, though, because we're trying to win games, we're just not going to even play ranked here. I don't want to set myself up for a terrible setup. So we'll try this one actually. I don't want to spend hours and hours trying to beat this game and other people at this game. I have an odd amount of news. I didn't write very small. There's a lot of empty spaces here. Unlike last live stream where I had effectively anywhere between 6 to 9 days worth of news combined, now I just have 3 days worth of news, and it feels like now that the first fiscal quarter is lower, that we can there's just not as much going on in the video game world. Games are getting announced and delayed more because it won't affect the bottom line. People will forget it by the time the second quarter is over. Do we want to do this? Or do we want to do this? I think I want to do this. I want to get some spell damage first. This is an overload deck, so it might work pretty well. Good news for the Steam Audio Software Development Kit. It now works and will ship by default in the Unreal Engine 4. Steam Audio SDK is basically Steam bought a AR VR audio company and then kind of allowed it out there for open source, I think, or they're licensing it really cheaply or something like that. I'm not sure. I think it's open source. I think it's free. And the idea is that it's physics-based sound. So instead of by default saying that a sound is going to be 100% in the right sound stage, the right ear, or the left sound stage, or if you're doing surround sound in a right front, right left, right center, back front, back left, maybe back center, maybe back side right, maybe side left, maybe top center. That's a newer standard that has been introduced. That's exactly what I was looking for, is that spell damage. There's pretty consistently going to be an increasing number of speakers in standards. I don't know if there's ever going to be an increasing amount of adoption, because as each speaker costs a decent amount of money, it gets less and less likely that people would actually adopt and use that. Alright, deal this much, then this much, then this much. And I'll go ahead and kill this guy. Probably could have played that differently and better. The physics-based sound, instead of manually coding it one way or the other, is more of a 3D sound stage being rendered in the game engine to tell you if you have a ball bouncing and you're, as the player or as the camera, looking at the ball and the ball's on your right, the audio will play on your right mostly, but not 100%, because the sound still would also reach your left ear. If that ball happens to bounce and move to the left side, it will start getting louder on that side, which is what you would expect in the real world.
I can see what is to come.
And if the ball bounces and moves behind you, it would sound more like it's behind you. If it moves and bounces more away from you, towards the forward of you, that would sound that way too. Now, so in theory, even for non-VR games, this should what does this card do? At the end of your turn, summon 2/3/2 imps. And I can't get rid of the nether portal. This was a quest that probably would have been really useful to have. So the Steam Audio SDK used correctly will potentially push all video game audio forward in any kind of 3D games. It probably won't do too much if you're making an Unreal Engine 4 game that's 2D. Let's be honest. But it might help a little bit even then. For that ball example, there's still a decent chance that that would be helpful. Let's get this. Attack, attack, and attack. And then we have victory. So that'll be interesting. My only one concern is I've played a lot of older games who are like I'm playing Assassin's Creed Brotherhood right now. We'll play again here, and that engine has an affinity problem where it doesn't recognize that CPUs have more core processors, and so you have to kind of trick it into recognizing that through a trick I won't bother explaining, because it's just not worth it right now to explain it yet again. But I've seen a lot of games with engines that barely can run even on modern computers, and if you're going to put a physics-based audio engine in your visual rendering engine and physics-based game engine in general of Unreal, you run the risk, if you don't optimize and program right, of having a bloated engine that will run poorly. And I guess you've always had that risk. So this really isn't anything new. It's just I could see some lesser video game creators making their games run even worse because it's got this 3D audio physics things. That being said, we have a pretty good trend of walking simulators, and if we had some walking simulators that was so focused on audio that this improved that experience a little bit, that would be good. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, for example, seems like a game that is potentially, if it was better optimized, it shouldn't be really taking up all of the resources of the Unreal Engine. And we saw when they released it from Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4, it did run better on 4. So with more optimization, I wouldn't be surprised if we particularly saw games like The Vanishing of Ethan Carter or The Vanishing of Ethan Carter itself come out and say, we're going to have this as an option. Let's see. I need to get really lucky here. And I didn't. So I risked it, and instead of, I shouldn't have risked it. Instead I should have done something different, but I didn't. I should have played this card and overloaded twice. One of the developers on Persona said, and I'm going to quote this, the longer it takes for a game to hit the market, you start to lose confidence in what's expected of you. You start to question your instincts. And it's an interesting comment for the fact that he is thinking in a direction that I approve of a lot more than what I've seen in other creators. That is to say, I've seen a lot of video games where it seems like the longer a game is in development, the more the creators stop questioning themselves and they just go down like crazy random paths. And then you come out with this game that it seems like nobody in their right mind would have wanted in the first place, and yet somehow it's still available. I'm gonna do this, then this, and then this.
I can see what is to come.
And then this. And attack. Quite a combination there. So I like the idea. That being said, a lot of times I don't think it's the actual creators of the games that get big into ideas as much as I think it's the corporate overlords of games that get sold on ideas and have ideas pushed on this. When you think about the latest Deus Ex and how that the multiplayer was just pushed onto them and microtransactions were just pushed onto them and they didn't really want any of that in the game, you can certainly see why people would not be happy with some of that. I'm hoping something works here, but doesn't seem like it would. It did. There's a Deadly Premonition and a Dark Souls board game coming out. This isn't completely video game related, other than those are board games made off of board games. The weird thing there is I don't feel like either one of those people, either one of those games in particular are gonna make good board games. In general, I don't particularly see board games turning into this amazingly cool idea to have in board game format. When you think about Deadly Premonition in particular, that's a game that is not programmed very well and doesn't have a very good graphics and doesn't have very good audio, and the only thing that makes it amazing is the ideas and how they're depicted, and I'm just not sure. I could almost make the opposite argument in the other direction, but I'm just not sure that there's a right use. Let's see, 6 to kill this guy. Dark Souls, on the other hand, is a very good graphics and very good engine and a lot of enemies to attack and all of that, but the difficulty is the main issue of Dark Souls, and when that difficulty is just brought down to an RPG thing, I guess I could see if you were doing something like Dungeons and Dragons in particular, that might turn into something that would make sense. With Dark Souls, but I have no idea what you would do with Deadly Premonition to make that a good board game. And I don't think even Dark Souls as a D&D adventure is going to have that same feeling of the Dark Souls in particular is all about those invincibility frames, those few seconds in which you have a small chance to get a backstab at the higher levels, and so I just don't know. So I honestly, I feel like board games are coming about and becoming popularized a little bit more than they actually are. I think there's a lot of, particularly Geek and Sundry had their board game show Tabletop come out, and that certainly pushed me into gaining a lot of interest in tabletop gaming for a short time, until I realized that, like, I don't have anybody to actually play with them, and the expense of buying all of those games is really high. It's really one of a rich man's hobby, and most of the games are not as good as the ones that were depicted on Tabletop. So they were showing some of the best in the first place.
Job's done.
That probably wasn't the right card to play, so yeah, I just don't see it. And then also, when you go the other direction and have board games on PC, the Monopolies, the Hasbro games are either in Uplay or EA Origins, or just not there at all, because I certainly don't see them on Steam. And maybe that's my recommendation, which I do have a complaint about Steam's recommendation engine, because all it's been doing for weeks and weeks and weeks is showing me the exact same games over and over again, and it's frankly annoying. Just completely redundant, unnecessary things. So yeah, I would like to get Monopoly. I'd love to do a spotlight of a Monopoly and like the Game of Life. I got the Game of Life for free on Android Play because there was a sale going off, and boy is that game dumb and sending the wrong message to kids, in my opinion. But it was so full of microtransactions, and that's, I think if I did spotlight half of the Hasbro games, I would think we would find that they are full of microtransactions. Now, on the Xbox 360, there was like 3 Hasbro family game nights and a Monopoly game, all specifically like with no microtransactions, I think. And they were all rather good, and I enjoyed playing them for all the achievements, even by myself. And that's inherently going to be an issue, is that I don't want to go on online and play Monopoly with random people. Nor do I have enough people who want to play Monopoly with me anyways, that I know, whether in the real world or the fake world. And Monopoly in particular is a rather long game, so I don't know how much of a spotlight I could really do. Let's see. This to do this. To attack here. In the turn. Moving on, there's a game called The Town of Light, which is a horror walking simulator, but instead of doing jump scares or just the usual garbage that they do on in horror games, this one is based in a real asylum stories. It's based upon a real asylum, and it has real world stories, and I'll say stories instead of events, even though the article said events, because I mean, frankly, everybody can make up, tell ghost stories or imagine things, and I'm skeptical, frankly, as to how many of these stories are going to actually be real, or if they're real in the sense that somebody who is clearly mentally unstable hallucinated something, which I guess, based on real world hallucinations, I think you could probably say who is that guy that wrote Jay and Silent Bob? That I imagine most of his movies are based on real world hallucinations, or Cheech and Chong movies might be based on real world hallucinations. And I'm like, well, I guess that's technically true. I guess it's how do you define the word real? But in my mind, comparing that to real world events is completely different. Do I want to do this card? I don't think so. But at the very least, that might be an interesting game for me to eventually get around to, because if it has more of an interview style cutscenes in it, it might be close to a full motion video game, which I saw a new FMV game too that I don't remember the name of now. I saw Giant Bomb covered it, and I figured it would look like it was running pretty smoothly, which is nice. Let's see. Let's just do this. Just kill everything on the field. I don't know if that's really a good system to use. Call of Duty World War II compared to Call of Duty Infinite Warfare's trailer has certainly gone to show that going back to their roots and doing a World War II game versus the Infinite Warfare, the game that was a trailer of guns and things that people hadn't really ever seen before because it was all just made up futurist stuff, certainly has proven to be the right move for them. So for World War II, they have a 10-to-1 ratio of likes to dislikes. So for every dislike, there's 10 likes. Whereas Infinite Warfare was a 1-to-7 dislike, like to dislike ratio. So for every 1 like, there were 7 dislikes. It's almost, if you're gonna do some rough math here, it's almost a complete reversal. Like, so when people think Call of Duty, they obviously think World War II and old military things, not fake military things, which should have been obvious to them in the first place, to the creators of the game. Like, if they wanted to do futuristic thing, they just shouldn't have called it Call of Duty. Starbreeze is going to have a live stream on May 10th with Warren Spector, who is the guy I think in charge of making System Shock 3, and Tim Schafer, who is the guy who's in charge of making Psychonauts 2. And this is oddly, both of these games are being published by Starbreeze Studios, which seems a little weird, particularly for Psychonauts 2, because I thought Double Fine was a publisher themselves. Starbreeze Studios seems like they're quickly becoming on the rise a decent publisher, and that'll be interesting to see if we gain a useful publisher that does some helpful things, that gets away from people paying EA and Ubisoft and some of the bigger companies that then are going to require significant changes. That's where, as a consumer, we have to keep our eyes on is, are we going to see Starbreeze Studio eventually get down to the point where they say everything we publish has to have DLC, has to have this DRM, has to have microtransactions. Has to be priced a certain way. Has to be sold in certain stores before anything else. Those are all moderate concerns we should have as consumers. Is just keep an eye on that and see if that happens. The only other issue with being a publisher for Starbreeze is Starbreeze going to be known for quality, or at least mostly quality, or will it start selling its services to everybody? And we see sometimes Starbreeze sells games that are incredibly good, and sometimes Starbreeze sells games that are incredibly bad. That's not really a huge issue because even like Digital Devolver is a kind of beloved publisher of small indie weird games, but a lot of them aren't amazingly good. Why have I not won a single game here? Oh, I know why. I've been playing as the wrong character. I should have realized that too. This is a problem with the new character things. I was looking at Morgold the Oracle here, thinking he was a druid, but he's not. This is the druid. And this is the druid. And see, I was gonna play this, and then I came over here and was thinking I was gonna play this, and I've been playing that instead. So nothing I've done in the past 30 minutes has meant anything. Boy, am I dumb. Well, that's the problem with doing things live. You can't edit these things out. Anyways, we've gone 30 minutes, so stay tuned if you're watching live. As for everybody else, I, as always, ask that you like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.